Welcome to 3 on the Ones and Twos with your hosts, Tom, Cassie, and James. Just 3 old friends talking about their favorite records. Think of it as the coolest book club for music nerds.
Hey guys, how you doing today?
Hey, it's just the 3 of us today.
Yes, it is. And but I did have a guest that was supposed to come, but life sometimes gets in the way. My friend Derek Wallace, great friend of mine. He picked a great record. I wish he was here to talk about it.
We live complicated lives.
We do. And listen, he's doing what he has to do.
I understand.
I understand completely.
It's totally cool.
But it's good to see you. I'm Tom, James, Cassie. That's Derek, but he's going to be invisible today.
Sure.
But
he picked a really great record, and this band I got turned on, I believe, by maybe Marlo Sanchez, or it might have been, I believe Marlo turned me on to this band, the Constantines, and the album is called Shine a Light.
Shine a Light.
Yes, it is a fantastic record, and it takes you on this ride. Like, I mean. It's almost hard to explain to someone because it certainly is a punk record, but it's also like an art record.
Is it a punk record? I want to talk about that.
Or it's an art record, I'd say. Or it's just a rock record. I don't know.
It's very. I mean, I know that a lot of people say that it's a punk record, and I'm interested in people's in people's opinion about that, because I know a lot of people say that. I don't. Besides the obviously a lot of people say that. You know, the Constantines, the most cliched thing that people say about the Constantines is it's a hybrid of Bruce Springsteen's and Fugazi.
No,
and it's like, I understand.
I don't even know if I like that description.
I know, and I don't, and besides some of the guitar work on it, I don't really get Fugazi. And
I agree with you on that. I mean,
yeah.
And if anything, like, there's harsh vocals, but there's harsh vocals in so many things, so it doesn't necessarily make it.
There are a couple songs where I really definitely got I do kind of understand the Springsteen. I was like, listening to it, I turned to Greg and I was like, do you think that this guy likes Springsteen? And he kind of laughed, because there definitely is, like, in the vocals and just the way the vocals are delivered, that alludes to Springsteen.
The wording and the phrasing, because Bruce Springsteen writes like, where one, I'm scared I'm going to forget my words that I write for songs. I write like 4 words per measure, and I let them drag out, and I'm like, I'm never going to forget these words. Like Bruce Springsteen, there's a lot of words in it. One song might be 90 words, like, you know, and the phrase, and the phrasing is it's along the lines of that. Beats like Craig Finn later on would hold steady, that kind of thing. That I could see, but I would say that's more art than. You know.
Yeah,
but there was a kind of around this time, there was a trend of bands sort of doing that. Yeah. Like, you talk about the hold steady. Mm-hmm. I think about, like, and this is not it's just coming to mind, but it's not the best comparison, is the band Art Brut.
I love that. I like that. I like that band. Yeah.
But like in that sort of mid 2000s era. This is, I look at this as being, and that's why I really wanted to talk about this album.
But by the way, thanks again, Derek, and we love you, and I can't wait to have a beer with you later on.
I'm really excited that Derek chose Constantines, because they're a band that I listened to at that time, and you know who told me to listen to them? Billy Nation.
Wow.
Really?
Billy Nation told me.
He sounds like he's been pretty instrumental in your life with a lot of cool records.
In a weird way.
Do you know that
I've heard his name so much.
The first band Greg was ever in, because Greg went to, what was that, high school, junior high school? With Billy. The first band that Greg was ever in was with Billy Nation.
Yeah.
They're like,
they're childhood friends, like, obviously.
Yeah.
And then
I don't think I've ever met him. I just heard his name.
I know. Well, he lives in Idaho, so
but I would say let's give a shout out to Billy Nation, because I think you've had an impact on my friend James's life and his, like what you've.
Well, and mine and Greg.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, yeah.
He's sort of this overarching presence in a weird way.
That's
he was
crazy.
my best man at my wedding.
Oh wow.
Really?
I love that.
Yeah.
And Greg went there, right? Greg was at your wedding? I think he was. I think he said no, I don't think he was. I think he was. He was at Billy's wedding when Billy got married. Yeah.
And I was at I was the best man at his wedding.
Oh wow.
Really?
It was the first time I was a best man. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Like, it was my first kind of like not childhood, but like, you know, your friends
I
getting
hear you're
married.
supposed to like the night before get it like do a bunch of nefarious things with him, like at a bachelor party. No, I'm kidding. Like,
No, we showed up. It was a backyard wedding. Billy was like, "You have to give a speech." I was like, "What?"
Oh my gosh, yeah, you got to give the toast. Yeah.
Oh my God.
The toast, yes.
So, whatever. I got through it. Fine.
But
he
turned
was
you.
the best man. He did a great speech at my wedding too. But
he turned you on to the Constantines.
He said you should check. We were just having a telephone conversation one time, and this came out actually when I was living in Amsterdam.
Yes.
And I think we were talking or something. He was like, "Oh, you should listen to Constantines. You'd really like it. Like, there is a kind of this." Kind of post-punk, but at the same time, kind of indie rock.
That I would say, yeah. There is.
There is like a post. I don't think like Fugazi. I think the Fugazi moniker just gets lumped into anything that's post-punk. It's like,
really
it sounds like
Well,
Fugazi.
I mean, there's certain parts of
like,
the guitars on here, and the way they interact with each other, and the use of like breaks, like silence, and then picking back up again. That you can definitely, if you take away the lyrics and you just really focus on certain aspects, then you can hear it. But it's not something that I would like normally just automatically think about.
I think
this album.
the only band that really should be compared to Fugazi is Gang of Four. Yeah.
Yes, I look at Gang of Four and Fugazi being a direct link.
That's it.
They're playing Sam.
But
I'm gone.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah,
But the Constantines, I look at them as being kind of a predecessor to Idols.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Oh, okay.
I definitely hear that sort of like you have this strong, dominant frontman singer with the arrangements and the backing and the emotional kind of like attachment to it. I hear that they're sort of like Idols, like 15 years too early.
I think that's a good. That's a pretty good.
I think Idols. When I hear Idols, I definitely think punk. When I hear Constantines, I don't.
You're more indie rock. But I think that's also a part of they kind of sit in a weird spot is one of the problems with Constantines. And I think that's one of the reasons why you don't talk about them. I know nobody. You're the only person I know, other than Billy or whatever. You're the only person I know who has talked about Constantines.
Constantly I talk about Constantines.
And you're like, and
really?
No, constantly.
Well, we have
constantly.
We have acted over Constantines.
We've talked about it.
Wait a minute, you're a big fan of this band.
I do. Well, that's the thing. It's like I want to say Bark Market, but there's something that like the screaming presence that with any other thing it wouldn't work, but it works. And I remember like a friend of mine, his band in New York, had this band called the Oxford Collapse, who were a great band for a minute. I think they were on Sub Pop as well.
Yeah.
And they toured with them. And he was telling me stories about playing with them, and I'm like, please tell me more. Like, you know,
that's what I wanted to find out.
Because they're like a secret band.
I never saw them.
You don't really know anything about them.
They were from Canada.
Yes.
I mean, at this time when they were releasing their albums, I was in Amsterdam. I never saw them.
Yeah.
But when I would talk to like Josh Favre from Deer Hunter, I'd be like, have you guys played with Constantines? I want to know if you guys have played.
They're like the
and
secret.
He was like,
they're the secret band.
No, we never played with them. And it was sort of like, but they were on Sub Pop.
Yes.
They were.
They did a couple of big tours, but I just didn't. I knew about them after that.
But they were only on Sub Pop outside of Canada, because in Canada they had a label.
I feel like they were probably popular in Canada.
Yeah.
And
I think they did well. They did well in the UK, you know. But
I think. So when I think about Sub Pop in this time period, I think about the big bands. I think about I think about the Shins.
Oh wow, yeah.
Coming out at that time, I think about Band of
Is
Horses.
this around the early 2000s?
Yeah, because this is 2003.
Yeah, this is 2003. I think my problem, not my problem with this album, because I don't, but like
I love the whole album.
My problem with a lot of bands that came out then was I moved to Florida for 7 years. I moved in 2000.
Yeah.
And I think that like where I was, just because I didn't make a lot of, I made some connections, but I didn't make a ton of connections. So most of the bands that I was going to see when I lived there were bands that I already knew of, or that people that I would contact back here in Atlanta were telling me I should check out.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a lot of access or connections
especially in Florida. There's nothing.
Well, I mean, unless it was, you know, and I'm just gonna say this, and don't hate me, people, but like in the 2000s in general, the music that was being played on the radio. Like if you didn't have people telling you
Sure.
or giving you like, hey, you should check out this band, and you're just listening to the radio, there was really a lot of it was garbage. It really was.
Really
so that's my opinion.
And you have great taste, and you have great taste. That's why we decided the three of us to do this show together. But like, and you've also gone down rabbit holes and discovered stuff and told me about stuff and vice versa. That's what we do. But if you're out of the loop and you're not looking for that, you are not going to find it.
It's hard
you know what I
to
mean?
find it, right? So it's like, I never. This is not my.
Well, I don't think anybody, at least in the circle that we are in, like sort of the whatever the microcosm that we have, Constantines is not on our radar.
They're not on,
And I feel like it's kind of, it's just sort of like a weird, this band that sticks out that nobody really knows about.
Like Marlo,
that they should check out. But I think this is very much, there was like an indie rock renaissance, I think, during that time period.
Which
because
is
if you
sad,
think
because
about,
then I didn't have like
but think about like the bands, think about like the Shins, think about Arcade Fire, think about Band of Horses, think about Deer Hunter, think about.
And I can say every single one of those bands is something that like I did not get into. Like
like when they were
because I was
coming up.
So
but a lot of people of if you were in Atlanta, you probably have stories of like, oh, I remember playing with Vampire Weekend, you know, at the Earl, which I did.
Yeah,
they opened up for us.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Cool.
That's awesome. And
which band were you in?
I was in Newt to Newt.
Newt to Newt.
Vampire
and we
Weekend
saw Band of Horses play there, Earl. And
I saw Band of Horses immediately after they were at the Friday Playhouse. Immediately after, you know. But I feel like that was the era where there was a small window where these indie rock bands shot way up in the. I mean, college radio, whatever. It wasn't like they were on 99X.
They were doing there was some great creativity coming out.
But also amazing, So you think about like all of the bands sort of in that early to mid 2000s era. There was this like push of like these bands that were really like doing a lot.
I have nothing, and I hope that we cover more of those bands so that I can reacquaint myself with because everything that you've listed off, I've heard of them. Sure. But I'm not familiar with them.
That first Arcade Fire record, I heard it before anybody. I lucked out and heard of it before anyone did, and it blew me away. Funeral, like 8 songs. It was amazing.
Yeah, I have listened to Arcade Fire only because Greg had it on his iPod, and he.
And then the second album, I absolutely hated it. I thought they were ripping off Bruce Springsteen, but now I love it. 15 years later, I love it. You know.
But I feel like the Constantines could have fit in that window.
I can see that,
but they just didn't.
Yeah.
But when I think about a song like "On to You," so what I think about the Constantines, and this is not my favorite Constantines record.
Well, I think the first one.
The first one?
No, Tournament of Hearts.
Yeah,
that's the one after this.
Which is the one after this is my. That's the one where
and that's
really
one has like more keys.
And that's what I was wanting
to
understand is like why do you choose this one versus Tournament of Hearts?
But
I feel like that one's their masterpiece.
But just the song "Shine a Light" is so powerful. I mean,
it's still a great album, but I feel like it is, to me, it is inferior to Tournament of Hearts. But at the same time, it's just like the band. They're like a post-punk band that was able to make anthemic songs.
Very, very anthemic.
They do have some anthemic. Yeah.
The anthemic piece, I think, Constantine does very well. That I think should have been recognized.
Well, I could answer that for Derek because I did ask him that.
Yes, please.
And he said it's simple. This is the first one he heard by him.
Yeah, and that could be it.
And it just connected with where he was at in his life. He was going through because there's some heartbreaking stuff on there. He's like, it just connected with him, his heart and his brain. And I think
that's kind of the point of the show is it's not. I know a lot of the albums that I've picked, or the couple that I've picked, or whatever, and I think maybe like the the ones you picked, they're not necessarily our favorites. They're ones that, for whatever reason, we feel like were pivotal for us, or like really
strong. Has a connection with you.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think this is one of them. Tournament of Hearts is the one that for me is the pivotal one.
No, I can't wait to listen to that
because
tonight.
of Draw Us Lines and songs like that, which is amazing. I always think that's their like masterpiece. That's their Born to Run. We talk about Bruce Springsteen,
as being an
like
influence.
what, and I wanted to ask, like,
Yeah.
if Tournament of Hearts is the Born to Run, like, what is this album to them?
A lot
That's
of
good. That's a good
say
question.
That this doesn't have like it's good, it's great, but like it
Sure.
doesn't have the same passion as their initial.
I got their initial album. I have all their albums, but I have them on CD.
Yeah.
Whatever, it was the era. So it's funny to see this, and I was going to make a joke about is that this is the only one I see used in record stores.
Right.
But
This
I've
is
never.
the new release though.
Oh, okay. They've
This is
released.
the new-
Well,
it's
thank
the
you,
newer-
Sub Pop, for doing it.
It's a newer release, and it
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
You want to say what you're going to say though?
Well, it's a newer release, and apparently it's a kind of a different cover in the fact that they took I believe from my research, they took a photograph of the old image that was already at that time then beat up when they resubmitted it or when they reissued it, and then this one also comes with a oh, never mind, because Greg did put it back in here. I was going to blame Greg. Blame Greg for everything.
What is that?
Blame Greg for everything. This is a
bonus 45.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
but it's the B-sides of two singles that they were issued on CD.
They were trying to push, like CD singles.
What is
CD
a CD
singles.
single?
It's
just like a
one song CD. They would have
like a couple,
just
for
like
radio station
station.
promos.
I got none of those.
Yeah, I used to get those.
Like if you're at album 88 or whatever,
Yeah.
like you would get like a CD of the Constantines instead of getting the whole album where you have to figure out like what song do I play.
Play this
They're just
song,
like, here's this
So
song.
it's more of like a promo type thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But then they'll put a B-side.
This is 3 songs, and honestly the first one on here, which I don't even know is a Constantine song. I mean, I think I have it in my research, but I really, really do love the first. Do you not have this?
No, I don't.
You take that.
Okay, awesome.
Actually, you know what? Take all this and
Well,
borrow
you know,
it.
this record was
That'd be awesome.
the first time they, and then it continued. It was like a band change. They brought in a keyboard player who was instrumental.
Yeah, they had a keyboard player in this one. Yeah,
in the writing and you hear it. So then by the next record there is like new wave elements. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, like that. There's that warm.
I still feel like
you know.
Tournament of Hearts came after this one, and it's where they hit their pinnacle.
Yeah.
And then they had the one after that was the one with the plane on it.
Yeah.
And I was super excited when it came out. I bought it on CD, and it's sort of like it just didn't have
it fizzed out for you.
Yeah, they just didn't.
And then they
it just
didn't
didn't
do
have the
anything
magic.
for a long time after that, right? Like they didn't for
did they
quite a while.
break up or anything?
think-
I
No,
think
no,
that was,
I don't think they did.
I think they're kind of just like
just Canadians.
Maybe like Fugazi. They're on an
No, I think
indefinite
what I read
hiatus.
is
Who knows?
that like a
you
lot
know.
of people expected that they broke up because one of the members, I think one of the members quit. Might have been the keyboard player. I don't know. Quit, and then I think maybe the lead singer Brian Webb, like he moved back to. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. Gulf, like where they're from.
Okay.
Like originally they're like from Gulf.
Some weird place in
Well,
Canada.
yeah.
And so people were thinking that they were going to break up, and then they issued something like, no, we're not. And I know that like as recently as like 2017 or maybe even more recently, they've played. Like they've played.
This is a
out,
band
like,
that I'd probably travel to go see.
I would love to see them. I do feel like they're a band who that they were. I don't want to say that they were held back in a way, but they could have been up there with like the bands I was talking about, like a Shins maybe not like a Shins or a Band of Horses, but like they could have sort of hit that indie rock. Yeah. Like, what do they call it? Like when you're a professor and you have tenure, indie rock tenure is what I call it. It's when you hit a certain level where now you can just tour.
Yeah.
Why do you think that they didn't though? Like,
timing.
I think they just timed. I think just people's lives and like you're saying that like like maybe they just couldn't keep it together long enough. They never played Atlanta as far as I know.
I don't think so. Yeah.
And people I know never got to see them.
And everybody says that they are a live band. Like that. Like
you can hear that the songs
Yeah.
translate well live.
They
They would be amazing live. Yeah, I mean, and so my theory about so this is the thing I was going to say was that I'll see this Constantines album used sometimes in records. It's the only Constantines album I see on vinyl used.
Really? Wow.
But I never buy it because
I wonder why that is though. Like that's weird. Like
this one, it just must have had better distribution or something. Like Sub Pop really pushed it. And then by Tournament of Hearts, if you try to find it, it's like $100 record.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's just
hard
because.
Well, I'm glad that Derek did not pick that.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to get this one. Maybe just this one's more common.
It's funny because I was saying, you mentioned Billy Nations. Marlo turned me up. My friend Marlo Sanchez, who will eventually be on the show. He, all of our friends. He introduced me to this, but he also introduced me to Lifter Puller, which became the Hold Steady. And there's a similar cadence and throwing out the vocal, like the delivery. You know.
It is. This is your kind of band.
Yes,
the same.
totally,
it's a very like.
Yeah, he did mention
vocally
the whole
based,
setting, like,
sort of literal band. They're doing a lot with their lyrics.
Like you can't picture him whispering. You know, he's got to be at volume 10 every time. Like just throw it out there.
But some of it, like even though he is at volume 10, it does feel like a whisper. Like it feels deep.
Yeah,
his
and the lyrics are great.
Brian Webb's. I think it's Brian Webb he's the lead singer, but he writes most of the lyrics, I believe, right? And
usually that's the case.
And his.
You never know.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think he does. The lyrics are so.
They're great.
I mean, some of them are. They're so personal.
They're very personal.
That it does feel, even when he's not whispering, because he's never whispering, it feels like he's whispering because it is so personal.
Yes.
Like you really do. There's certain lines that it's just like.
And that's where I feel like the kind of Idols comparison comes in. Like that's where I feel like it's a very like singer with the heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
And the band's behind him, backing him emotionally. They're playing emotionally charged music, and they're conveying like a feeling. They're conveying this emotion, and it's like I said, the songs that are anthemic are really anthemic, and that's why I feel like that's where they do things. When they do the anthemic songs, it's like where they're at their peak. And also the quiet, like sensitive, sort of sentimental songs are also very good.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the post-punk songs are like.
I think those are.
They're good, but other bands do it.
There's like two.
Right.
There's
where
like
they
two,
really stand up.
There's two, right? There's two songs that are like. To me, when I first listened to it, it felt disjointed. It's the first one, National Hum, right?
Yeah.
Is like, and then there's like another one which might be on the second side, maybe.
Yeah.
That are like, they
kind of stick out for you.
I had a problem initially seeing how it melded together as an album because of those two. So, because it just because they are so different.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's great to show your range. The more I listened to it, the more I liked it.
Yes. Yeah.
I think, like I said, I don't personally, because I'm a Tournament of Hearts guy. Like it's not their best representation.
We should eventually talk about that record.
Right.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Maybe when Sub Pop reissues it, and it's like a $20 record, we'll do it.
Or if Derek Wallace has it, he wants to come back.
I mean, listen,
but this one has like great moments. I think
it does. Yeah.
And the point I was going to make about the record stores is that this is my theory. Is like. When I see it in record stores, I usually don't buy it because my whole idea when I go into a record store, and this is what keeps me in line, is that if I find a record and I'm like, this is a great record, I want to own it, it's like, well, do I want to bring it home and put it on the moment I get home?
Yes.
If the answer is yes, then I will think about buying it.
Right. And also, you see a record all the time, you're like, I don't need to get it. But if you see a record that's hard to get, and it's not
also,
$100,
you'll never find it again. I gotta get this because it'll never come. I never see it in the wild.
You're like, if it's less than $40, I'm gonna get it.
Right. If it's like a critical album, you're like, oh no, I need to get this.
I like that. I try to buy all the albums that we do. I mean, some of them I'm not going to be able to because of like the cost or whatever. But I try to buy them, and I like that because I like that it diversifies my collection so that I can do whatever I want. Like
it's kind of a memento of the episode as well.
Right. Sometimes I think that you need to break out of like what you feel like listening to and just be like, hey, here's this thing I haven't listened to in a while, but I know that had some like
magical moments.
Really, and put that on, and then really, and I would only do that if I owned it.
So you're saying sometimes we don't know what we need until we get it. So you're like, maybe I'm not in the mood for this, but I put it on, then I realized I was in the mood for it. I needed that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
that's
it's like, and so I like owning them so that I have that ability to step outside of how I'm feeling
lovely.
right then.
That's lovely, and that's one of the many awesome things about music. I mean, that it can change your mood. You know.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I'm glad that we talked about Constantines.
Me too. And Shine a Light even.
And Shine a Light as an album. Like I said, I think that they need to be more well known. They're kind of like a slept on band just because of the time frame they came from.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if they came around in a modern era, I feel like people would know them more.
But why do you think about that era that just made them not?
I think they just didn't like. There were so many bands coming out at that time that were just going to the stratosphere. Like they were just.
Yeah, they just were.
They were just on these crazy ascendancy.
Really, because I'm just gonna put this out here. I don't know why they were on this crazy ascendancy, because all I remember from the early 2000s is that music was pretty meh. It was pretty meh.
There was some pretty good music.
There probably was, but
you got to remember. You got to remember.
But I didn't know it, so I was only listening to things that either people told me
whether
about or
like,
things that were on the radio.
Yeah, but whether you want to like it or not, people were like they said, the Strokes saved rock back, and New York Interpol, like there was early 2000s, like rock real instruments felt like they were coming back.
But were those things? But were those things on the radio? Because I was living in Florida, Tom, and
college
I didn't
radio.
know anybody. Okay, I didn't really know the college radio stations when I first moved around.
I mean, I think honestly, there's a weird. Because of where your circumstances, you probably have like a weird black spot.
I really do.
In your music, but I really feel like there's a big time in the 90s, post-grunge, where all these bands were getting signed and getting really big. All the bands who had done a few little albums and local labels were getting signed and getting in front of stadiums.
Yes.
You have a Jawbox or a Jawbreaker or Shudder to Think or a million different, and also weird choices too, like Butthole Surfers.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, then there was like kind of a fallow period because most of those bands didn't do anything. They did their one major label album and then they crash and burn.
Right.
And then I feel like in the early 2000s, there was this renaissance. There was this other
rock back
push,
exactly.
where it's almost post-internet. It's sort of like bands exploded in this more organic way, and that's where I feel like the door for a little while opened up for.
And also, you got to remember
those bands that we're talking about.
You got to remember, like with proper management or proper publicity, whatever. A lot of these bands were in skate videos. They were in movies. I mean,
they started getting a
hipster movie with a couple songs in it.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, oh, like I love the movie. Ben Stiller did The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and Arcade Fire's all throughout that movie, and it's just beautiful, and it's like a painting.
Well, there's like Garden State is like all the shins.
I love that.
It's like the entire shin.
Exactly.
So a lot of it then ends up being luck. Then.
As music is.
I totally think it is.
And the Constantines weren't.
Because there's so many. I don't know.
The Constantines just weren't. Didn't have they just weren't like the planets didn't align for them.
And listen, we don't know them. We love the band. I love the lyrics, but they might not have been the most ambitious. They might not have been trying.
Sure, they've been like,
who knows?
Whatever. We're cool. We're good in Canada. There's so many Canadian bands that are so big that we don't even really that are just not on our radar.
Which is crazy because they're right there. Like it's like so. I don't know. But I would like to talk about some of the how we feel about some of the individual songs.
Young Lions.
Young Lions. Young Lions is an anthem. Poison is my favorite.
Yes, that's
Poison
true.
is my favorite.
Yeah.
Poison, and from what I read, like whenever they play live, they always say, when they play Poison, they always say, this is a dance song. And I'm like, and I can attest to that because not only does it like talk about like dancing, but also I danced in my living room every time I heard that.
This is also
it's got a catchy beat. It's got is it the organs that come in with that like?
This is also the dance punk era. This is when Block Party came out. This is when the Yeah-Yeahs came out. This is when Clap Your Hands Say Yeah. This is when
dance,
all those types of like
which is funny because I think a lot of them came from ideas from like Gang of Four, but then they put their own spin on it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It all originates with Gang of Four, and then it goes out from there. But like I said, that's what I look about. That's what, if anything, this episode is about. It's about that weird.
I agree with you.
Early to mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about, but yeah.
Right. But
Which
then
I appreciate
but also
learning
that's
about
so
it
much
now.
fun for you because you're gonna like
It is.
you're gonna
I'm
rediscover
learning
some
new
bands,
stuff.
bands that came out 20 years ago. You're like, holy
Exactly.
shit, this is amazing.
But I think about that was a renaissance where a lot of also where bands came from Atlanta. If you talk about Deer Hunter, if you talk about Black Lips, if you talk about Coat Hangers, if you talk about Mastodon, you talk about all these bands, there was a fertile period where bands kind of came in.
Without a doubt, I agree.
And some bands made it, and some bands are still playing today, and some bands didn't.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's to me, it's a very interesting era that I don't think has been talked about very much.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But then it sort of has that era is gone. Like that has
it's the last
come
of
and
it.
gone.
Yeah,
Deer Hunter's from Atlanta, right?
Yeah, of
like
course. Yeah.
They played. So a couple years ago, after Shaky Knees, they played one of those late night festivals at the Earl. Idols played the night before,
right?
And then we went to go see the Deer Hunter, and it's like, for a band that didn't make it, they sure.
I would say Deer Hunter made it.
Because I was going to say for a band that like
they do
you know, like
right.
they sold it out.
Yeah,
they sold it out.
No, I put them up. Obviously, I put them up with a lot of those bands.
Bradford's a talented guy.
They have indie rock tenure. That's the idea is what bands have indie rock tenure.
And also he's very good. He's talented. He's very good at creating this mystique about him. Like there's so much stuff no one knows. You know.
I mean, I just know that the show itself was freaking awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
And so 20 years from now, you're going to go to Chastain Park, and there's going to be a Deer Hunter set. There's going to be a Yeah set.
Yeah, exactly.
There's going to be a Shin set, and it's all going to be us at 65 years old.
I guess I'll drink to that.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to Derek Wallace. I wish he could have been here. I also thank you to the Constantines, Canadian rockers.
We didn't talk about the individual songs. Do we have like how much? We have like a couple minutes and then a letter, maybe? I don't know. Just to talk about like everybody's like.
Yeah.
What are your favorite songs?
For me, it's Young Lions.
Okay, I love Young Lions. For me, I love Young Lions. I love Poison.
Poison is great.
Yeah,
Well, that's the
Do we know what the singles they were trying to push off of this album? Because I have no idea.
I mean, I might have it in my notes because I think that in my notes
I feel like
have,
"Onto You" would have been the.
I think that "Onto You" was
the single that they were trying to push.
One of them. I think that they had a couple, like a couple singles, but BP singles, Young Lions.
I see it. "Onto You," Poison.
Yeah.
No, this is just the track listing.
I see it.
But I see here Young Lions.
Canadian radio. They were probably huge in Canadian radio.
Yeah. I know it.
I know that they had more than that. I know that they a few of these were. Let's see. Okay, so the little EP that I have.
The 45.
They're B-sides from the CD singles of Nighttime, and so Nighttime Anytime, and then Young Lions. So I know that those
It should be "Nightlife" by Thin Lizzy. That's what they should have done.
I've been trying to get Thin Lizzy into this conversation all
So
day.
You started.
So now we're going to take a detour and talk about Phil Lynott.
Thank you, James,
Okay.
and cheers to Phil
Okay,
Lynott.
so I said Tom said his.
Yes.
One favorite. I said.
I mean,
my
their
favorite,
anthems are the best, and I feel like
Young Lions is their best anthem.
Young Lions, I do think "Onto You" is even though it's kind of like a single, like it's sort of like you can see it's like a college radio
Do you
single.
really think that's an anthem?
But I think it just has the backbeat and it drives.
it does,
and it's
yes.
like it's good. And yeah, I mean I think it's a great album, but like I said, in my mind the album after this is the high watermark.
I can't wait to discuss that one too. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
You go just listen to it on the way home or something.
I will, for sure.
I think it's
I'm
but
super
anyway,
excited.
I'm glad that this one was chosen because it's also like a little bit of a left turn, which made me reevaluate. Because that's why I wouldn't buy it when I saw it at the record store because it was like, well, I like that album, but it's not my favorite. If I saw Tournament of Hearts, I'd buy it in a second.
Yeah.
But But next time I see it,
I just
I'll
love
pick
that
up.
Billy Nations was,
And that it's Billy Nation that told me.
You know that you brought up Billy Nations on the episode that we talked to with Henry Owings when you were talking about how he remember.
What did I say?
You said something about how you were introduced to, or you knew about Henry Owings because.
Oh yeah,
Billy
because I knew him through Billy Nation because he had.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Billy Nations is going to get a lot of credit.
There's
Billy
a weird.
Nation was like,
there's a weird Forrest Gump element to
and,
Billy
like, he was a friend of
Nation.
his, and he was
His best
like
friend.
the first
His
band
best
that,
friend. That's
the
amazing.
first band that he was in was with Greg. Like they
that's
were
amazing.
good friends from.
He
That's my husband. That's my husband.
Shout out Billy Nations.
He
Billy Nations.
started dating a girl that I used to date, and he was like the new boyfriend
What?
for a girl.
Wow.
Well, you know, when you're dating a girl in high
Yeah,
school, it's
yeah,
all
it's
very blurry.
kid
at that point
stuff.
anyway.
Stuff happens.
But that's how I knew Billy
That's
Nation was
amazing,
that
yeah.
the girl I was hanging out with.
That's how you met him? That's
was
how you met
like,
him? And
well,
then
it's
you're
like,
just
no,
like-
Billy Nation was like the cooler guy.
Yeah, no,
I'm going to hang out with Billy Nation, not James Joyce.
I have a hard time believing that.
And then we went to school together, and it was like, but enough
No,
time
but-
had passed, and
no,
we were
but
like,
isn't that
that
always
was funny.
awesome? Isn't that always awesome when that happens? When it's just like you should be mad, but also
It's just
you,
like,
you just
you know
gained
what?
a really good
We're-
friend, like somebody that you should be like good
yeah.
friends with, and it's like
Yeah,
it worked out.
It's all good.
I love it. I love
Worked
it.
out good.
What's going on with that letter?
What's going on with the letter?
Oh, well, we kind of already talked about it. This one was from Michiel from Amsterdam.
Oh, I remember.
Because I started listening to Constantines when I was in
I
Amsterdam.
remember getting a letter from Michiel. Yes.
He said, "Hoi James, goedemiddag. What is your favorite band from the 2000
Wow,
era from this
I would
thing?"
probably say the Constantines.
And knowing that Cassie has a black spot in her memory.
I'm sure
at
they
that
put
time
that.
point.
I'm sure they definitely.
Michiel knows about Cassie's.
Yeah, Michiel's written to the show a few times. I want to say what's up to Michiel.
Yeah, Michiel in Amsterdam is a big fan of the show. Yeah, he lives on the Kalverstraat.
Yeah, and we're tight. We're tight.
We used to see each other at the public library. That's the Amsterdam Public Library is where I got this album.
And the red light district.
And the
Okay, you
red
go
light
first.
district.
Well, I want to say Constantines, but I will say that first Arcade Fire album really was
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
special to me.
Yeah.
The song, there's just talk about anthems. Oh my goodness, and it was like church. It was like gospel to me.
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
I mean, think about I'll probably say maybe, and I don't know if it fits in this, but it kind of does, is like the Bell and Sebastian album.
Oh.
If you're feeling sinister.
I love Bell.
is
That's
a-
great. That's
Yeah.
great. But
is
that might
also
be late
one-
90s though.
Yeah, it's kind of like
I think-
predates it
Yeah,
a little bit,
but still
but I
wonderful.
feel like
Still
it kind
wonderful,
of
yeah.
opened the door to like
It did for sure.
these
yeah.
bands are doing interesting stuff.
Yes.
I think
It's not just grunge anymore.
No,
We're doing
it's
something
it's
different.
like drama and theater and art.
And
yes.
that's what Arcade Fire kind of hopped onto.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I agree with that first Arcade Fire. You can't deny
It's so wonderful.
how monumental that
I
album
mean,
is.
I'm probably going to listen to it and go to sleep in about an hour.
What
It's
I-
like, you know.
What
Catch
I'm
up.
going to say is might not be a 2000 band. I think they're a little bit earlier, but I was living in Florida when my friend Stacy, you know Stacy,
Yeah. Stacey.
was telling me about this band that I hadn't heard, and then I went to go see this band called And You'll Know Us by the Trail of Death.
Oh, they were great.
Yes.
Man.
And
Their first couple
and
albums were great.
I don't like them as much. Anything I've heard recorded, and I didn't hear anything by them
That's a good
recorded
live.
By the time
great,
you saw them.
after,
Great live
until
band.
after I saw them
Great
live.
live
Yes.
band.
And it was one of those bands. I saw them live, and it was one of the in Orlando, and it was one of those bands that was just like
How much stuff did they destroy while you were there?
they didn't.
Oh, okay.
But well, I don't know
But
because all I know
they
that it
destroyed
was like
your
I was
ears.
freaking.
Yeah.
And you know how much I love beer,
Yeah.
and like so normally, and this is my like, this is how I know, and it doesn't happen very often, but this is how I know when something is like above like
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
When I don't leave where I'm standing,
So
go
you-
get another drink,
you're like-
and I'm just like, I'm
You're
just
like,
gonna
I
stay
gotta watch
here.
this.
I cannot
By the way, that's a
leave.
great test of. That's a great
I mean,
test.
it's
Yeah.
like-
I am
by the way,
transfixed.
I've been that way. I've
Yeah.
been that way.
Yeah.
I went and saw the Afghan Wigs play, and I had one beer.
Right.
'Cause I love Greg
It's just
Julian.
like,
I
'cause
love
I can't
that.
go
I
get
can't
another
leave.
beer
I was like,
because I can't leave
I don't want
it.
to take a risk and miss a song that if he
Exactly.
plays Gentleman, I'm going to flip out. You know.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
kind of thing,
and
yes.
so like Trail of Dead, it was
Trail of
actually
Dead.
one of those that
Also a good.
I felt. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
It's a great
felt
one.
it.
No,
That's a
I because I was in Austin during the Olympics, I kind of was part of that kind of I saw them during that time.
Great
but
band.
then they became a 2000s.
Great band, yeah. Great
Yeah.
But anyway,
I mean, they were earlier than 2000s, but yeah.
Sure, yeah, but then they really took off. All right, we're wrapping it up.
I thank
We're
you, Derek.
wrapping
Thank
up.
you, Derek Wallace. We'll get you
Thank you,
back
Derek.
here.
Derek Wallace,
We'll get you
we'll
back
get you
here.
back here.
Much love to you and your family. Thank you guys. I love you
Yeah.
guys. This is awesome.
Book club continues. Constantines, shine a light.